One of my favorite memories with T, a rainy day in San Francisco. T was the co-president of the Latino Pre-Law Society at Berkeley. She personally and single-handedly organized a tour of UC Hastings, which is a fabulous law school, which is one of the top law schools in the country for anyone who wants to work with any part of the DOJ. If you want to be a public defender, if you want to be a prosecutor, if you want to be a judge, if you want to do anything with the actual justice system itself, Hastings is great. Where is Hastings? Hastings is in the heart of San Francisco. It is essentially
across the street from the courthouses. So you get real courthouse experience prior to your graduation from the school, which I think makes it quite unique.
Exactly. It is essentially for the entirety of the University of California system, it is their designated law school. Just like UC San Francisco is for the entire University of California system, it is their designated med school, okay? And it is, as T said, across the street from not only the San Francisco Superior Court for the city and county of San Francisco, but also the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the second highest court in the country. Some of the most landmark cases in our country's history have come out of the Ninth Circuit, and not just quote unquote liberal cases involving civil rights or gay rights or anything like that. Talk about the tour, T.
The tour was pretty interesting because going back to the conversation we were just having about the rankings of the schools, Hastings does not rank in a top tier level of universities. And I think it's to the discredit of the ranking systems. UC Hastings had an outstanding member of the leadership at the time. His last name was Trevino, who was very committed to moving the needle on students of color entering law. And the tour was probably one of the most welcoming experiences. I can't imagine feeling that welcomed at Harvard. Hastings really makes you feel like they want you to come there, and they don't give you the vibe like, oh, you're so lucky to walk on our floors. It seems like there is more of a convenient and consistent way of interacting with professors, with staff. It seems a much more intimate educational setting, which I think is the better way of speaking to developing critical thinking and kind of engaging in those rich conversations that I feel like you can only have in those smaller types of classrooms. So we had a really great time, walking in and out of classrooms, touring the building, and from the building, looking out the window and seeing the neighboring courthouses that you can literally just walk across the street to. So you're kind of enmeshed in the system of the law. And for those of us who've always had a fascination with it or are actually in the industry, it's really kind of inspiring. And one of the things that I actually respect about Hastings is their commitment to not only students of color in law, but to public service. So it's really important to them that before you get out of that school, you are almost a practicing attorney, for lack of a better way of wording it, so that your first kind of dipping your toe in the pond isn't after law school and sliding into a institution or a firm of some sort, and you're just kind of finding out how to do this for the first time. So I think that gives it a huge advantage over some of the other schools that rank higher. So those are the things that are not accounted for in rankings.
Yeah, and amongst their notable alumni include Kamala Harris, Jackie Spear, Christopher Darden, George Moscone of Moscone Center.
Moscone Centers, yeah.
And Willie Brown, the former mayor of San Francisco.
Renowned.
The former Speaker of the California State Assembly. Yes. So,
correct. Right. So it's not for like a school of bums.
Right. Now, when you asked about, since we were talking about rankings, very recently, UC Hastings went from being a top 10, top 15, top 20 school to being in like the late 30s or early 40s. Some people are concerned about this because unfortunately this does impact what jobs you get, especially coming out of corporate coming into corporate law, if you want to go into corporate law. I met a number of Hastings alumni or current Hastings students doing an internship when I was working at Morrison and Forrester, lovingly referred to as MoFo. Okay. That's because its headquarters is also in San Francisco. Do you remember what the tour guide told us when they were asked about the rankings?
He spoke to something about the fact that they had, because of their commitment to getting students of color into the school, they ranked lower.
Yeah, this white lady who was like a 3L going into her third year was not, and this is not a reach, with no exaggeration. She was asked about the drop in the rankings, and she specifically said,
It said it was because of the commitment of recruiting students of color into law.
yeah, she said the diversity program, and she said that to the Latino Pre-Law Society from Berkeley.
I don't remember why, though. Why is it that their focus on students of color impacts the ranking?
It doesn't. This white bitch just couldn't. She was caught on the back foot because she's giving an interview. She's answering questions while on a tour guide.
So to your point, that's untrue. You don't think that that's why their ranking dropped?
No, I don't believe that at all. I think that's what white people blame.
Okay.
Okay, because coming from Texas, I've run into several white people who are like, oh, I didn't get into my dream school. I believe I just made up that there's some black or brown person who's less qualified than me who got my spot instead. It's the
right. Well, that's the anecdotal defense, right? If one experience happened to you, that's somehow the universal experience and somehow equates to fact and truth.
Yeah, well, it's, we talk about white privilege. It's the automatic built-in excuse that white people give themselves. I'm
gonna retire the word privilege. I don't think it's a privilege to be white. I think I'm going to slide in with the word advantage.
I like that.
I don't think it's a privilege, but there's an advantage.
Yeah.
There's an advantage.
Yeah, you get the benefit of the doubt, at least when it comes to being considered a criminal.
Yeah, I think privilege implies them getting something they didn't earn. And nobody's saying that white people don't earn things. I mean, I know white people work hard. I see them on the subway every day schlepping their asses back and forth from work. Like, white people work hard. I get it.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the advantage you have of being white, where you get the benefit of the doubt, where when you get in an elevator, no one's clutching their purse because they're not assuming that you're going to rob them. When you walk into a jewelry store, they're assuming you're there to buy something and not do a smash and grab. I have transitioned myself from white privilege to white advantage.
I like that. I think, to exactly your point, and I would just echo it. You said it better than I ever could. Privilege implies some kind of economic benefit that you just got because you're white.
Right. And I disagree with that. And I understand the argument that is presented by white people who feel that there is a dismissiveness of the actual work that they do put into having the lives that they have. And again, nobody's saying that they're all home every day eating bonbons. Like, white people go to work. Nobody's an idiot.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that there's an advantage to it.
Right. And there's an applied dismissiveness of white folks that are sitting here living in trailer parks that are overrun with meth and fentanyl right now, that are struggling, just like folks in the hood were struggling with the crack epidemic.
Right, but they didn't call it an epidemic, a crack epidemic, when it was happening in the Appalachians and when it was happening in the trailer parks. They called it's transitioned into a substance abuse problem.
Oh yes, it's a public health issue. It's
public health issue.
Disease. So, to your point, advantage versus privilege. It's not like you popped out of a white womb and somebody handed you thousands of dollars or millions.
Right, unless you're in the top 10%, in which case that is true.
Right. Okay, so
we're talking about the average person in the street who is of Caucasian descent.
Right. So back to that.
I said you didn't go to work today. All we're saying is that there's an advantage to the complexion.
Yeah. Now. So we mentioned Prop 209. I wanted to touch on Prop 209 and our experience. So the point is, white lady in front of literally the entire Latino Pre-Law Society, which is not a small club. You brought a good 30 people to this tour in the rain, all the way to San Francisco. Everybody had to take a doggone BART and stuff. This is before Uber, by the way. This is like 2011. Okay.
Right. This is before everybody just jumping in Ubers.
Yeah. Everybody had to take a doggone BART. Like, they need to get a budget from the school and everything. You had to plan it, right? Came all the way there in the rain. This lady gives you the tour. It's a great tour. And then she, at the very end, blames the diversity program for why the rankings are down while talking to 30 Latino students. You talk to the dean. Remember what the dean said about that, Mr. Trevino?
I don't.
He basically said everything you and I just said. He was like, but he was very passionate. I think he might have gotten, okay, I'm not going to say he got her fired. He was very upset that a tour guide would say that, especially given the context that we just added.
Right. But that's that unconscious bias, right? That's the part where they're like, what did I say? What did I do? Like, right. Because we know what explicit racism is, right? And everybody thinks that they're not an explicit racist. Like, look, I'm not standing under that tree of that burning body. That is not me in that photo with Jerry Jones. Okay, great. Nobody's saying that that was you. What we are trying to say is that racism takes different forms, some passive, some covert, and some aggressive. And that because racism and prejudice has been bled into all of us, we have to be cognitive of the fact that there's other ways we could be expressing that racism.
Yeah, I'm sure that chick, that fine young lady is a nice person. Also though, you know what that speaks to? It speaks to how professional we were as a team, as a group. So I am obviously not Latino, but I joined.
And nobody was in their feelings about it either. Like, it's not like anybody had a meltdown and we didn't pick at the school. We just kept it pushing, and we were like, one day we'll just bury her in a courtroom. Anyway, that's what's for lunch.
Right. Y'all didn't decide to just yell at her like right then and there. I think students would probably do that now. But I was just going to say, I feel like you and everybody there put her at ease to the point where she just like let some shit fly out of her mouth that she usually would reserve for just a white audience.
Well, I think my perspective increasingly has become, stop giving people so much power. Like, who cares what she thinks ultimately? Like, these are people have opinions. Some are right, some are wrong, some are horrible, some are worse than others. But ultimately, no one has a monopoly on how I view myself or how people of color should view themselves or what diversity look like. Like, who cares what anybody says? I don't care. Pull up Alex Jones. People get so outraged. I look at this guy and I'm like, this bloated, overweight, clearly either alcoholic or drug addict or both. Looks like he's this close to having a heart attack. He looks like Elvis right before he died. Why are we giving this guy so much credibility and so much credit? Who cares if a lunatic like this says some wild shit? Doesn't he look nuts?
Damn, you're so fucking right.
Who cares? Oh, Kanye West said something. So what? I don't go. Kanye West is not my spiritual guru. I go to him for a hot beat. The end.
I love that.
He's not Deepak Chopra. He's not Yoda. Nigga makes beats. Okay, so what? Why do we suddenly look to him for like suddenly he's the medium between me and God?
Watch Kanye change his name to Yoda or like release like a fucking Yoda album or something, and that shit would be fucking fire.
Although he did say something recently that I agree with, where he said everybody around you is acting. I think that's true.
Yeah, and like, you know, the whole Yeezus thing of like he's gonna create a new persona and everything, doing the Metallica font. I thought that was genius.